Joe E is our next caller. Hello, sir. You're up next.
Hey Bart, how you doing, man?
Pretty good, man. Pretty good. What is David? You know David Ramsey? He says better than I should be, or something. The financial guy.
Yes,
Yeah.
my parents love Dave Ramsey. Every single time I do anything, they're like, "Hey, did you see this? So he's talking about this now?" And I'm like, "No, no, I didn't see
Here,
that."
I want to go on a little tangent from about Dave Ramsey. Besides the fact that he's sort of a right wing, a little bit of a right wing nut job, just a little bit. You know, not that bad, but he's an interesting one where I can. So his whole, you know, I'm into finances and financial stuff. His whole approach to telling people on how to get out of debt, and it's not the most EV, but I can understand why he does it. And his whole approach is pay off your mortgage no matter what. Pay off your mortgage no matter what. Who cares? And as a numbers guy from a poker perspective, if I have a $500,000 mortgage, and let's say I got a mortgage like a few years ago, I'm at a fixed 3% rate, right? And then of course the interest from the really, you know, it's really costing me, you know, maybe 2 to 2.5% with the tax deduction. Why would I ever pay that off if I can beat that through even non-risky investments? Right?
Just stick all that
like
extra
an index
cash
fund
flow in a freaking index fund or
like
an ETF or something.
Right, exactly. But I think for a lot of people, they don't have the self-control if they come into money, right? Like if they get an inheritance or who knows, they come into money somehow, they just can't budget it out. So I think for most people, maybe that's a thing. But anyways, I digress.
Yeah, so we're at Tampa Hard Rock. The game structure for this was actually like really weird. People were trying to figure it out like as we were playing, because normally the bigger game that runs there is a 10-10 with a big blind 10 ante. So there's always a 10 dead from the big blind. Literally that week, I think it was the day prior, they changed it from the dead ante to 3 blinds to 10, 10, 10. So, and everyone was like, what is happening? What's going
10,
on?
so
But
10
like,
on the button? Is that the third blind?
no, it goes small blind, middle blind, big blind, and then of course action would start under the gun. But yeah, there was 3 blinds of $10.
Yeah, I don't know if I've actually seen that setup. I mean, it's, you know, obviously you see games that are straddled, right? Or if you're straddling in a game where they have the same small and big, like if you're playing a 5-5, it would be 5-5-10. But I haven't seen one where it's the same blind. The thing that always annoyed me when I went up to the Bay Area is they play 3 blinds, but they have like the little blind on the button. I always forget. Like they'll play 2-5-10 where the 2's on the button, and like, you know, maybe some people limped, and I have some piece of cheese that I would fold. But then I realized that it was no, not even 2. It was like it's like 2-5-5. It's some partial amount on the button where it's like you should be almost completing with anything. So this is 10-10-10. Okay.
Yes, yeah, and it was really weird. No one liked it. We also had an under the gun mandatory straddle to 20.
So you have 4 people. So 4 people have money in front. 4
money
dead
in,
money.
yeah.
Okay.
And we were 5-handed at this point because it was a little bit later in the evening. The main game was going. We were at the must move, and so we had 5 people at this point. So the only person that didn't have money in pre-flop was the button.
Yeah, that can get a little interesting. So under the gun is the button. I actually and I've talked about this before because I would see this in Texas games quite a bit, like your setup exactly in Texas games. And I had a guy email me this question, and it's like, well, what do you open from the button? Well, it's not a button range because you've got all of the unknown hands behind you.
Yeah, you have
5-handed. It's a little bit
hands behind you.
Yeah, 5-handed is a little bit different, but I mean, we were sometimes playing Texas where, you know, there might be 6 straddles or like 2 people and a quad straddle, right? So cutoff or button was first, 9-handed. And it's like, what do you open? We certainly don't open a button range, but you can open looser than like an under the gun range because you're going to be inevitably in position. So it's kind of a little bit of a mix. Yeah. Okay. So 5-handed.
Yeah. So we're 5-handed. I'm going to be effective this hand with 26-35. There is another guy that does call pre-flop, but he ends up folding on the flop. So he would have been effective at like 900. So straddle happens. So it's 10-10-10. Under the gun straddle. The villain is on the straddle. The button just folds, so he's out of there. Okay. It's on me. I'm in the small blind with Jack of clubs, 10 of clubs.
All right, so here in the small blind, second to act, Jack of clubs, 10 of clubs, and I would definitely open here, and I'd probably make it from out of position. Well, you guys are just over 100. I mean, you're not super deep with the straddle. I might make it. I might make it like 80, 70, 80 to disincentivize the call from the straddle, and that's going to put the 10, 10, 10 guys. I mean, that's a good chunk. So that's where I would think about. What'd you do?
I went 80, and I was wondering if that was going to be my first question. If that's too small? I've asked a couple of other people about this, and they were like, "Oh, that's not small. Like I would at least go like maybe like 110 to like 120 here."
6x.
I mean, there's the guy in the blinds were aggressive. You know what I mean? They're not going to be.
I mean, if the guys in the blinds are aggressive, though, the more you raise, the more they can 3-bet as a proportion of the pot. Think about that, though, too. So if you keep the side, I think 80 is fine, but that's even another reason why you wouldn't go super huge if you were to go like 120 and then get 4-bet to 400 or something like that. So you go to 80, yeah. Okay.
So I go to 80. The middle blind is a solid guy. I've played with him a couple times before. He's I think he's a pretty solid player, but he ends up flatting.
Which middle blind? Like the guy in the
80.
The third blind?
So on the small blind, there's the middle blind, and then the big blind would be the last blind, and then the straddle is going to be the last to act.
All right, so I'm going to say the big blind. The guy to your left, and what does he do?
Yes. He just flats.
Okay.
He just calls.
Wow, that's weird. I don't know if I would ever call a hand there in that spot. This is even more extreme. Okay, so he calls.
So then an older gentleman, he's definitely not an OMC. So he flats in the technical big blind.
So the third, I'm going to put it up as third blind. So big blind calls, third blind calls. Okay.
Yep. And then now the villain who was on the straddle, he makes it 400.
Wow. Here's just a 400. I mean, I think that this is just a fold. I mean, I don't know if you're a CLP sub, but this is the definition of the stuff that I went over the last couple of weeks. I mean, I know Jack 10 suited is a pretty hand, but you do not want to call. I mean, it's either a 4-bet. It's either a 4-bet as a bluff or a fold. I mean, you can't. I don't want to call here and then be sort of out of position. I think to these other guys. I mean, you certainly can defend if you were heads up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but with the other people, especially with the shorter stack, that he might just jam over it.
You've got that. You've got that. That's another consideration, like you said, is the possibility of maybe someone getting tricky with a back jam. But
yeah. Because when the older guy called the 80, he only had like 800 left, 800, 850 left, something like that. Mm-hmm. And so I ran this hand by a couple of other people, and I actually ran it through the CLP Discord as well. Mm-hmm. And a couple of the guys were like, yeah, I think this is just like a 4-bet or fold here. Like it's not, you don't really want to be calling here.
I think it is. So what you called?
Yeah. I ended up calling. Yeah, I wasn't. Looking back at it, I'm not really happy with that because I'm so dominated. I'm out of position here. Especially like if someone back jams. But the original the middle blind, technically you said it's the big blind. He ends up folding. And then the third blind just flats again, and he only when he flats to 400, he has maybe like 350 or 400 left.
Oh, that's crazy. So third blind, super short calls. Mm-hmm. Okay, so now the pot's like 1200 plus, right?
Yeah, 1280 I have.
Okay, all right, let's go to the flop.
Okay, so the flop comes the 10 of spades, the 5 of spades, and the 3 of clubs.
So 10, 5, 3. You've got Jack 10 of clubs. The pot is 1280. You guys have like 2200 left. Plus, there's a shorty in there with like 350 who never should have called. He should have either back jammed or folded. Okay, I assume you check.
I check. The third blind checks as well, and now villain goes about a 1/3 sizing. He makes it 400.
So straddle bets
makes it 400. Yeah,
400. Well, I mean, you've got the backdoor flush draw here too. I mean, you can't. I think if you get here like this, you have to continue with top pair, right? But this
like a 1/3 sizing.
Yeah, I mean, it just demonstrates how difficult this can be, where you're basically folding everything else. I mean, you have to continue here. At least you can't get check jammed on by the guy in the middle because he's all in, right?
Exactly, because he'd be all in for less.
So here are calls.
Yeah, and my thinking was like if I call here, I do have a pot size bet left, and if he jams on me on the turn, then I've got like a interesting decision to make where I'm probably leaning in toward folding.
Well, I think it depends. But so what is the guy? We gotta move a little quicker. What's the guy in the middle do? Does he fold?
He folds. Right, so I call in the middle guy folds.
All right, so third blind folds. So now the pot is like 2080, and like you said, it looks like You have like what 1800 left or something like that,
Yeah, I
right?
have 1835 left
Okay.
effective.
Okay. All right. Turn.
So turn is the four of clubs.
Well,
Yeah.
so you pick up a
so
flush
I
draw.
yeah, so I check in flow.
Yeah.
And he thinks about it for probably 10 or 15 seconds and he checks back.
So it goes check, check. So I want to move back to something that I washed over. This is why I love the live chat. Someone said, okay to go for stacks now. And I'm assuming he's talking about on the flop. So let's go
On the
back to
flop,
the
yeah.
flop real quick. So it's 1280 and you've got what, 18, you have 2200 left. Is there ever merit to check raising the flop here for protection? Because you can't check raise and fold. You're going to be pot committed here.
Yeah.
It's a little. I think with a third guy in there, you can gain some information by him possibly going all in and then that freezing the guy. I don't think I would do a whole lot of that. I think with these stack sizes, just really quickly. Now, as we move to the turn, you have less than a pot size bet left.
Mm-hmm.
The turn's the, what did you say? What club it was again?
Four of clubs.
Yeah,
so it should
right.
be 10 of spades,
Yep.
5 of spades,
Three of clubs, four of
three
clubs.
of clubs, and then the 4 of clubs.
So a couple things on this. Number one, to answer your question, if he jammed now, it's a very easy call because he could be, he might have picked up like a wheel draw here with any ace. And now you've picked up the flush draw here too. So if you're behind, at least you've got some equity.
A lot of outs, yeah.
So if that happens, you basically have to call. And I think at that point, even if he bets like 1/3 of the pot, if you were to go, so like if he bet like 600-700, I mean, at that point, you probably have to jam now too, because less than 1/3 effective. You don't want him to just get like a free look at something if he's never bluffing the river. But so now what I'm going to say is that he doesn't always have to have nothing here to check this back. Although it is because when I was looking at this, I remember when you submitted this as an email, I was like, oh, the 4, some guys will definitely check back over pairs here. Now, with that being said, though, the setup pre-flop, though, you really shouldn't have much for him to worry about, like 6, 7. I don't know if you would open and call with pocket 5s, pocket 3s, something like that. Ace deuce. I mean, all those hands really should be fold. So if I'm your opponent, I don't know why I wouldn't. I mean, I'm playing for stacks with an overpair here for sure, because there's too much money out there, and it just, unless you flopped a set of 10s, right? You probably shouldn't. I should have you beat with kings, queens, aces, something like that. So that's a little bit interesting. Okay, check.
Yeah, and that was kind of my thinking too. Like I'm thinking, oh, awesome! Like I have a flush draw now to go with it. I have top pair. I'm like, there's no way if he bets any amount that's less than all in, like I'm not jamming on him here. So like my plan was to 100% jam. If he made any kind of bet that was less than all in. And then when he checks it back, I'm like, on this board with 2 flush draws where he's going to stack my pocket jacks, he's going to stack my pocket queens, he's got aces or kings. Like, is he really not just going to be putting all the money in here trying to get max value? Like, especially if I have like a spade draw, like king, jack, a spade.
I tend to agree with you with the pot size and the pre-flop setup that he should be betting most overpairs off. All right, so what's the river?
So the river's the 9 of spades.
Okay.
9 of spades. So the spades get there, and pot's still the same, 2080.
Yep.
And I decide to check here because I think like if I jam myself or if I block, like I'm basically committing myself if I block, and so he can jam anything basically. And if you were to call off,
if you were to upfront jam, you're just basically turning your hand into a bluff. You're never getting called by worse. Yeah. I mean, I think it's interesting if the river is like an offsuit 9 or something like that. Like, are you ever betting for value here, like a ridiculously small block size to get called by like an ace high type of hand to make it look like maybe you busted out on front door flush draw? But now when the flush comes in, you run out of value here.
Yeah, exactly. So I decided to check, thinking like I would much rather check and have him have to bluff it and be able to make a decision rather than just jamming it and never getting called by worse. Like I'm never good if I jam, he calls.
So Ryan's poker channel says rep the spades. He basically can't have them. And what he's saying is that he would be double barreling a lot of spades. I mean, if the guy has like a ace X of spades type of hand, that picks up a combo draw on the turn. You think he probably would, go balls to the wall with that. So that is an interesting thought, turning top pair here into a bluff. But at the same time, I'm a little bit perplexed with what range checks back turn here from this guy 3-betting with this thing. So you check, okay.
So I check, and he again thinks for about 10 or 15 seconds and says all in.
All in.
So he jams for my effective 1835.
This is a very interesting river because, again, for what I said before, you would think that he would be doing a fair amount of double barreling here with spades. Mm-hmm. If he was pot, here's the thing too, like if he was pot controlling like some sort of overpair, is he going to choose the all-in sizing now when the front door spade comes in? Now obviously you can do that with, you could do that, I suppose, with like ace-ace with the ace of spades, which blocks most of your flush possibilities. And now you're really only left with like king-queen of spades in this pre-flop configuration, or queen-jack of spades if you call with it pre, or jack, something like that. And then you'd have to check the river when you made it after it went check-check. It's highly unlikely. So that's why you can get away. That's why he can bet ace-ace here, with the spade. With that being said, though, if you're not checking flushes and you don't have many on the river, when you do check, it usually means you don't have a flush. So if he had like a hand like ace-king with a spade in it, like the ace of spades or something like that he chose not to barrel on turn, he could obviously try to bluff you here at the end. I'm not looking at the live chat. I find it very, very curious here because of the check back on turn that he would jam river now when most spade draws, I would assume, are getting are getting
bet by me.
No, well, most spade draws by him are getting bet on the turn, and then also like if he's checking back in overpairs, you're really going to go for all-in sizing now. I might get very curious here. I got to tell you, I might get very, very curious here.
Yeah, and I was very curious. I even told him, like, when I was thinking about it, I was like, man, I'm like, this just feels so much like ace of spades, king X. I'm like, I really feel like what he's squeezing to 400 pre is like ace king of spades, ace queen of spades, ace jack of spades. He can't have ace 10 because the 10 of spades is out there. He can't even have ace 9 because ace 9 of spades comes on the river. So I'm thinking here he's really only repping 3 combos of ace king of spades, ace queen of spades, and ace jack of spades. Like, that's really all he's really repping here.
Well, he can put, like I said, he can put you in a spot with the ace of spades, knowing you don't have a flush, and then get into the situation where we're curious and you get looked up with a 10. What ended up happening? What'd you do?
So I ended up tank calling, and I'm like, I just think you're betting so much of your value off on the turn. I'm like, I have to call here. Okay. And so I put in the call, and he says, yep. He's like, good call, you're good. And he turns over ace of spades, king of diamonds.
Oh, we talked through it. I didn't know the result, but yeah, I mean, the whole thing makes sense, right? I mean, we spent a long time with it, so I'm not going to rehash it again, but I think we correctly talked through exactly what ended up happening. So I appreciate the call, Joey. Thanks a lot.
Bart. Appreciate it.